Welcome back to PRN Test Drive. Today we have here a 2024 Acura Integra A-Spec. This is the base model with the automatic CVT transmission. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about what this car offers and what its competitor offers and how they stack up. So let's get started. First up, in the front here, you see very nice Integra logo engraved in the front bumper. This is something that we don't really see nowadays with vehicles. I don't think there's any vehicles on the market right now that shows the logo engraved in the bumper or in any of the body panel. Now, in the front, you get your radar cruise control, radar sensor here for your adaptive cruise control, as well as the famous Acura grille. These headlights also look really cool with the daytime running lights going this way, down here, like a swooping line, as well as 4 LED beams that you see at night. Now the front bumper down here, it's quite a nice design. You do get fog lights here, and then over on the hood, you get these bulging power lines, shows you extra grunt of the vehicle. Now moving to the side, see that A-Spec logo down there, looks quite nice. The overall silhouette is a nice looking, swooping, sloping roofline vehicle here with a very simple one-line design flare down there. This is a hatchback, so the whole trunk lifts up. Now looking towards the rear, you do get a black trunk spoiler, which adds to the grunt and the power of this vehicle. Definitely adds 20 more horsepower there, right there. And the taillight looks nice as well. Again, very Acura-esque, which I don't mind at all. Now, in the rear, you get dual exhaust tips along with sort of diffuser type looking thing, as well as the Integra engraved down here. The trunk is not power. It's a lift back, and you have ample amount of trunk space here, along with Integra logo here with the accessory that was provided, which looks very nice. The seats fold down completely, basically completely flat, which is great. The one thing that I don't really like is the fact that there's this huge hump to get into the trunk. So you would have to lift the stuff up, put it over this ledge, and then into the trunk. Something that I don't really like. But fortunately, this vehicle is low enough. So even if you have to do that, it's not that troublesome. Overall, a very nice design. The downfall of the exterior, I think, the only thing that I don't like is the wheels. Not necessarily the design itself, but I just don't think the wheel fits very well in this vehicle. It looks a little bit small, it looks too conservative. If you look at the side here, the fitment is just not aggressive enough. And you see a whole lot of wheel well here. In contrast, the Civic Sport or Civic Hatchback, Civic Sport, has this really nice designed wheels and fits much better than this would. Especially in this color, the wheels and the body color looks exactly the same. Doesn't really work for me. But it is 18-inch rims here with Michelin tires. Let's talk interior. The roof line is a bit low, so you have to be a bit careful not to hit your head getting into the trunk, just like what I did there. Interior space is great. Legroom, plenty of legroom. Headroom, I do have it. They have this hump here. That gives you a little bit more headroom once you're in place in your seat. Plenty of leather here. One thing that's weird with this vehicle is you don't get an armrest in the middle. It's just missing here. No cup holders here as well. But the leather surfaces are soft and cushiony. You get a little pocket here, no vents here. This looks a bit cheap, to be honest with you. Door panels also look a bit cheap. This is, even if they did a different color of this, it would look better, I think. Now looking over that side, you can see there's some leather here, some speakers here and there, but overall just a bit plain in the back seat. But you do get a nice little sunroof there. Overall space speaking, this vehicle is great. Now, before we get into the front seat, I have to show you guys what's underneath the hood. So this vehicle does require a prop rod. Doesn't have hydraulic struts. But this is what's under the hood. A 1.5 liter turbo engine that you're probably familiar with in most of Honda and Acura's product, but this version gives you 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. This is straight from the Civic Si. But the interesting thing is, this is the only model that you can get this engine, this output, with an automatic CVT transmission. The Civic Si is manual only, so you don't get the convenience of driving this day-to-day in traffic effortlessly. You can see here that the little turbo is doing its thing, working really hard when you're pushing this vehicle, but overall it's not a very pretty engine bay. You do get this Acura logo here, but no engine covers or anything like that. The sound of all the body panels closing, the hood closing, the door closing, is just extremely solid feeling. Okay. Getting into the front seat, you are greeted with a nice little animation of the Acura here. And then turning on the vehicle, your engine start stop is right here. Again, some nice animations. In the front, this is where it looks the most premium. You get this material here that mimics sort of like a carbon fiber, but it really isn't, as you can clearly see here. Down here you do get your drive mode select, handbrake as well as brake hold, cup holders here, I'll get to in a second, and really fancy clicking knobs. Just sounds so premium. Infotainment screen here is small. This is the 7-inch one. It doesn't really do anything aside from these 4 buttons here: phone, radio, media, and wired Apple CarPlay. That's it. Aside from that, you do get plenty of leather here. The seat design is nice. Have some patterns here to show off the design. And some piano black plastic here as trims. This is where I hate the most. What is going on with this armrest? Why is there a dip here? I can understand that you want to put the cups here and you don't want to block it and stuff, but this is already a thick enough or deep enough cup holder that I really don't think this matters. Or as a matter of fact, you could probably just make this into a sliding one like most other vehicles have and not cut out this portion. This is really difficult to put your arm on because you slide off. You can't really rest your arm here, and you can't move it forward and backwards either. Don't understand, don't like this, would just really prefer this. Even if they can't make this a sliding one, just put smaller cups here. You know, you still have plenty amount of space here for that. No wireless charger. You do get USB and your regular 12-volt socket. Now to the steering wheel. This is where you feel the most home, because this is really, really good steering wheel. It has just enough amount of thickness. It's round. It's not a flat bottom steering wheel, but you do get this nice little A-Spec logo here, along with your heated steering wheel here. The buttons are extremely clicky. And everything just feels so well built. You get plastic silver flappy paddles here, nothing too fancy. And in the screen itself, you do get quite a lot of information, like your average speed, tire pressure monitor, so on and so forth. Fuel economy, of course. What's really, really cute about this vehicle, cute, is that you see that little vehicle, little Integra right there? It does, in terms of lighting, it does everything that you do in real life. If I press on the brakes turns on. If I turn on the signal turns on. It's so cute. No complaints there. I think it's really fun to have something like this. Now, I think is time for a drive. Let's get going. Now I'm starting off in comfort mode, which is the most conservative mode that this vehicle offers. It has 3 modes: comfort, normal, and sport. The screen right there shows you the little lines that's going, and it's real time. It turns as you see, as the computer sees the roads. It's quite cool to look at. But of course, when you're driving, you really wouldn't be looking at this all the time. So first impressions of driving this vehicle, it's very quiet, very smooth. Ultimately, this is a CVT, which means that there's no shifts, but in comfort mode, really, I'm just coasting right under 2,000 RPM. Extremely comfortable and quiet. The sound system is quite nice to use. It's not an ELS system like you would get in the Elite, but still sounds quite nice. Really have no complaints about that. You do get blind spot monitoring in this vehicle, as well as adaptive cruise control as standard. Going up the hill, putting in some power, absolutely no problem at all. This, at the end of the day, has 200 horsepower. The car has automatic or idle start-stop. So, as you can see now, the engine turned off. Just adds another level of fuel efficiency or fuel saving in a vehicle like this. The system itself is not super intrusive, because as soon as you let off the brakes, it turns on quite quickly, so it doesn't feel like it has much of a lag here. Of course, a mild hybrid system would do it better, but this is not too bad. Even in comfort mode, the vehicle has a decent amount of get up and go. The CVT has improved quite a bit over the years with Honda, and it really does allow the revs to go up much quicker when you're off the line. It springs it right into 2,000-3,000 RPM when you put in a bit more throttle. And if you're trying to, and it does feel like it's kicking down instead of just a regular CVT where you coast around 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. It does make it feel a little bit more engaging to drive, but at the end of the day, it's still a CVT. Later on, we will get into sport mode to talk about how this feels in sport mode. But let's switch it into normal and see how this feels going from 0 kilometers an hour to 70 after this red light. So, as you can see, it gave me a little bit of a fake shift, which is quite interesting. But it only works, the fake shifts only work when you are flooring it and it goes all the way to red line. That's the only time that it will allow you to give fake shifts on its own. Now, of course, you have the flappy paddles that you could use, which we'll try. But although you hear the sound, you hear the engine sound, it doesn't give you any feedback from your seat, from the vehicle. It feels extremely smooth. It's not what I want in a manual paddle shifter. I think Acura did its best, trying to give you a little bit more of an engagement to drive without sacrificing the fuel efficiency. Speaking of fuel efficiency, this does super well in terms of fuel efficiency. In the city, I'm getting around 9 liters per 100 kilometers, or less actually. And on the highway, 5.6 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. Overall combined, you can see down there, 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers after 155 kilometers of driving. So, of course, we're going to put this into sport mode. As soon as you put it into sport mode, the revs go up to about 2,000 RPM. And taking some turns, you do feel that the steering wheel is a bit heavier. And that's 100 kilometers an hour. Really quite effortless, but in sport mode it does keep your RPM quite high, 2,000 to 3,000 RPM pretty much at all times. So it does get a little bit of a droney noise when that happens. The engine sound is not something that is the best in this vehicle. It sounds a bit coarse. 1.5 liters sounds a bit coarse. Now we're getting into some twisty roads. The adaptive cruise control still does it very, very well. As you can see, it looks at the lane and steers smoothly. It's great. I think the system is brilliant. Now, of course, we're getting into some turns, so I'm going to put it into sport mode and turn off all the assistance and see how this car feels. Let's put it into sport transmission as well. Immediately, it drops your RPM, or it drops your gear quite a bit. You're down, you're up to 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, and then you could use your manual transmission or manual flappy paddles. And it does make you feel like you're a bit more engaged, and it does hold the revs, which is great, but it doesn't feel like anything when you shift down. There's no feedback. The vehicle doesn't slow down much when you're downshifting. And this vehicle does not have a front limited slip differential, so as you heard there, a lot of wheel spin in the inner wheel on the left there. Let's put it back into drive. And really, the suspension is doing wonders here in sport mode, although you don't get the adaptive dampers. The suspension itself is already quite decent. It absorbs shocks quite well. It's not too bumpy. Honda and Acura, it goes for both, really. The Honda Civics, Honda CR-V, as well as the Acura Integra, they all do such a good job with the suspension tuning. I really have no complaints. Steering is a bit heavier here, and overall it handles quite well. There's not a lot of body roll here, but we're on winters here, so it's not that grippy. Although this vehicle really would benefit from a limited slip differential. That's fun. Since we're already here, why don't we stop and try to do a quick launch. Now, 0 kilometers an hour, a little bit of brake boost. Okay. There's not a lot of launch off the line because this is a CVT. It does let you bring up the revs to about 2,000 RPM. And when you let off the boost, there is already a little bit of boost, which is great. So, all things considered, this 200 horsepower vehicle with the CVT, obviously it's still efficiency oriented, does quite a good job at giving you a bit more power. Put into sport, do a bit of downshift. Does get a bit droney. Takes bump very well. The power is quite instant if you're up in the RPMs. I'm getting some understeer here. But this car does very well. Alright, back to normal mode. Overall, this vehicle is a very, very good car. You don't really have to worry about reliability because it's a Honda Acura product. And although it's quite a bit more than the Honda Civic hatch, it's an Acura. You get an extra year of warranty. That already offsets quite a bit of cost, and you get nice little tidbits of the exterior looks as well as the Acura badge. Going into this vehicle, testing this vehicle, at first I wasn't sold. I was always like, why would I want an Acura Integra or an ILX, whatever that means, if I can just get a Honda Civic? Why would I do that? A Honda Civic hatch is pretty much equivalent to this vehicle in a lot of ways. Now that I'm driving this, looking at the outside, living with it, I like this. I think I would pick this over the Civic hatch. Again, with the cute little vehicle that is in the middle there. Oh, I'm kind of sold. Anyway, that wraps it up for today's POV review. Let me know down in the comments below, would you take this over the European models? Would you take this over the Civic equivalent? Or would you pick this one? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.